Greetings, Timothy. I'm the Digital Apothecary, and today I want to talk about for an academic title is basically where should you publish as a pharmacy professor? And this is something I get asked a lot. I actually had this conversation just recently about this with someone else that's outside of academia, but I also have colleagues and people from different institutions often inquire um, in terms of like how I publish, where I publish. And the reason this comes up is because one thing that stood out is that I'm an associate rank now, and I've been 7 years in academia, almost eight, and I think at this point in time probably over 30 peer-reviewed publications, and then on top of that also multiple blog articles and stuff online. So there's a plethora of stuff I've put out over the years, and I mean, there's things like our Spreading Challenge, which I've seen. I think it's spearheaded by Siptel's editor Jenke, and other ones I've gone into it, and I love the idea like just writing. Like to me is, I think there's some ideas of like where do people want to write and how they write. So I'm just going to kind of list how I've gone about it. I'm not saying I'm the best writer. I would never say that. I feel like most of the time it's just trial and error, but there's some things that have caught my attention when I've had discussions with other people that I think might help. So to start with, one of the things is that I often think holds up a lot of people is the pursuit of perfection. And what I mean by that is there's all too often I think, and when I write with other people, I've seen this a lot, is this urge to basically get the perfect sentence, get the perfect paragraph, get the perfect everything. And I think in pharmacy, there's a lot of type A personalities, first off, and a lot of us are very characteristically, we want to have everything just right. And I think if you have that mentality, it's very easy to sit down, go to your keyboard, just go and be like, I don't like that. I don't like what I just wrote. It looks bad. You're gonna beat yourself up. And when you start doing that, I think it's writer's block comes into play. I think it's easy to just want to walk away from something. Um, and ideas die that way and things die that way. So I think one of the things that has always helped me is I like to just write. I'll just pour everything out and then I step away from it. I'll come back. Sometimes I'll just skim it and just keep going to see where it's going. And I don't really wait. I really just wait till the end to really edit. That's always been my tactic with going about any type of writing. It could be blogging. It could be like academic. That's going to go up for review. I am a person who just will just pour everything down and then edit and trim it. And I ask people to review it or look at it. My wife is probably one of my biggest supporters who review things. I feel bad for her sometimes just because I know she doesn't want to read some of this stuff, but she loves grammar, so that helps me out, I think. Um, but the aside from that, though, is yeah, definitely. I think this pursuit of perfection, if you have that in your head, is going to really make writing very difficult, and it can quickly turn something into a very love-hate relationship. Yeah, the other thing that gets me is, besides just writing itself, is what to write. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I have two different tactics. Sometimes I have a journal I want to write to, and I think of something to write for it. So um, usually, if I do that, it's kind of like a review, an editorial viewpoint, commentary, something like that that fits that journal's niche. One example would be some of my digital health pieces have been focused on that. The other thing is looking out for like invitations to write and such. Some journals will put stuff out saying, "Hey, we're looking for articles on X, Y, Z." When I see that, then I'm like, "Hey, that's easy. Let's go there." And along with that is one of my tactics is I like to contact the editors. And maybe that sounds insane, but I have no problem calling editors. And if they have an office line, if I can reach out, I can email them, drop them a line. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, look, I'm looking to do a paper on XYZ or I've written so forth, stuff like this. Would this be a good fit for your journal? And if they say yes, then I know what to do. I can look at the style guides, stuff like that, and it helps me a lot. And then it stops me from shopping around. So that's one way I can like, generate ideas of what to do. The other thing is just I kind of just base it on things that I find interesting, and that can be all over the place. I think some people, when they write, they feel like they have to write just like some kind of study. Like they have to feel like they have to write a paper on a randomized control trial on XYZ. If they don't have anything like that, then they shouldn't publish anything. And then you'll probably not really publish all that often. I think depending on your institution, though, if you're for a huge tenure track position that requires that you have to write stuff like that, then that's what you have to do. But if you're in an institution where you just have to publish or put things out, I think those are beneficial because it builds up a writing portfolio that you can use for different things. So, kind of where that goes is what helps me personally is I maintain a blog and I write on the blog and I write articles. And sometimes what I find myself is I'll end up writing something and I get in depth with it and I take a step back and say, hey, I want to do a blog. I'm trying to aim blog pieces no more than like 2,000 words, which I think for an average reader is anywhere between 400 to 600 words. And that's why I try to keep things short. But if you start getting very long, I start asking myself, hey, who do I think is actually going to read this? And I don't think you have a lot of readers reading this, and I think I have a select clientele, and I think I have select readership, and maybe I should just turn to a publication. Maybe I should put this somewhere else. And that's something that I think is a tactic you can have is just write. If you have things that you're interested in writing about, there you go. Oftentimes it could be like some examples of if you're in clinical practice and you have students on rotation, you're doing journal clubs focus on new things coming out. Can you just do a new drug review on that? Can you do a review on that service, that stuff? One thing for me that I'm working on, maybe I'll publish it, maybe I won't, but I've been doing this in-depth search into like what use has pharmacists used for teleservices for providing clinical services. So like telemedicine or telehealth to provide clinical services. So I just started doing the lit review. I was going to like write a blog article about this, and this is where I got down the rabbit hole. I found a lot of articles, and I was like, man, so I'm making a review out of this. If I'm already making a review out of this, then I'm just going to go a little bit more formal and turn this into some peer review, so it can be published in a journal. So taking things that you might be doing, if you're looking up stuff and you're reading a lot of things and you can craft a narrative around it, then you're expanding knowledge base that other people maybe not have, and just that experience, that knowledge, that insight is worthwhile to be published, I think. And that's just a way to put things out. I've had faculty that I see that have been doing different activities, surveys, different work, even novel things working with students or just in their clinical practice. And say, and to me, like I look at that and just like write about it, publish it. Like that's what you could do. That's how you can generate, scholarly work, especially if you're a person that's not involved with like many studies or many research things, and you have no one to tack onto. Like, at least in my mind, this helps you develop your skills as a writer, and that helps you further progress and grow. Along with that is then probably one of the other obstacles I think a lot of people may come across is failure. No one likes rejection, ever. But when you write and you publish, odds are you're going to be rejected. I've had so many rejections over the years. Like, I don't keep count. Actually, there's one thing I keep count of. I think at this point I have submitted either 6 or 10 publications to New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, and the New York Times, and they're all been like little small editorials, like viewpoints or letters and such on different things I've read or want to respond to. I've submitted to those journals, and I've never been accepted, and I accept that for what it is. But I've done that just because I put the time in. I just wrote something out, looked at it, crafted it, and like I submit. And I'm crossing my finger like maybe one day they'll take it. I've been doing that for the past 5 years. So like every year I'm sending 1 or 2 articles to one of these big journals on the off chance maybe they'll accept something. Maybe it might happen in a decade. I don't know. But I do it because for me it helps me practice if I was to write to such a place. And the other thing is I don't know what's going to happen until I try. And if it gets rejected, I'll just recycle and put it somewhere else. And I've done that too. I could put it back on my website as a blog post. So I always look in terms of like content generation, what you do with that. The other things that I always, for me, I've been trying to play around more has been crafting better tables, figures, like even stuff like that, trying to make it more captivating. I think that has helped me generate concepts of how to even point someone to get across better. And I think that's gone back into my slide designs and when I lecture. So I found when I do these types of things, they can rebound and I can reuse the skills I develop, put them somewhere else. So this is, to me, it's also about self-growth. So I think writing in academia is very daunting for new faculty because on one hand, you're kind of like, I've never maybe written by myself or I never really had to take charge of a piece. And it's annoying, it's a pain, it's scary, and yeah, I think it can be. I think it comes also how you attract it and go towards it, and how you're really kind of worried about what you're going to do. And I think if you come across it has to be perfect, I don't want to be rejected, it has to be a good fit, and everything, you're going to psych yourself up. I think if you write and you get better at writing and you find something, you craft something that people want to read, someone will publish it for you. And you just have to chase after and be with it. The other thing that I also probably hate, and if you go down here and then it becomes new to you and you start publishing a lot, is just the whole. This is probably one of my most annoying things, is just all the different submission sites for journals, like Elsevier, Sage, things like that. They all have different like things that you log into, different passwords. Some journals will ask you for an ORCID ID, other things will ask you for these things. You're like, I don't remember what it is. Let me Google myself and pull it up. Oh, there it is. Plug it in, and then you submit, and then. So the one thing that's going on for me right now is I just got back from a journal article that was accepted, and I'm editing it, and I don't know what they did, but they changed the structure, and all my references are out of whack. I have to go back and redo my whole references, and I'm having flashbacks to like 5 or 6 years ago when I had an article and I didn't know how to use a lot of different things. I wrote something in AMA style and they wanted APA style, and I had to redo everything. And probably one advice is learn how to use like a reference manager thing, like EndNote or stuff like that will help you. I'm not really good at it. I don't use it. Whenever this happens, I remind myself I should probably do that. I tell myself that now. I'm talking to you and telling you to do that, and I'm probably maybe in another year going to sit down and try to train myself. But that'd be my advice. Um, the other thing is when you start staking out journals, looking at one thing also keep in mind is there's a big push for open access journals. What are the benefits for that? Well, almost anyone can read them if they have internet access. That's great. Which would hopefully then build in a larger readership to see what you put out. The negative is they're going to charge money. I was looking at one journal, and I think it was a digital health journal, and like the charge was like $2,000. And so if I'm writing like something on my own, it's not research. I don't have grant funding for it. I don't have $2,000 to throw at that. I don't. Um, so you have to keep in mind, like, if you're publishing somewhere, especially if you see stuff like that, is it something that you can use to get in there? And maybe, if it's something that's low cost and such, you want to talk to your department chair and say, hey, if I submit here, is there funding available that can help pay for this? Kind of, it's something to explore. Otherwise, go for a traditional route. Some journals will offer open access if you pay a fee, and if you don't, then it's not going to be open access, but you still traditionally publish it. Look into that, read the fine print, so you don't get it down to like a scary part there. The other thing is once you start running a lot, or once you start putting things out, you will inevitably get hit probably with spam emails from what has been called, oh man, it's not aggressive, like predatory journals that are aimed around like processing fees and make money and such. Um, there are lists out there about these kind of journals. Talk to your librarian if you're not familiar with them. They can help guide you with that. But just be cautious of some of the solicitations you may receive saying, hey, we saw that you wrote XYZ. We want you to write for our journal. One of my examples that I love is, I think 2 months or 3 months ago, I got a solicitation to write for a journal on geology. I'm pharmacy. I have no idea how they picked it up. They're like, you should submit, you wrote a paper on hackathons, so therefore you should write a paper for us on sedimentation. And I have no idea what algorithm picked that up, but it's a bunch of spam out there, so just be cautious as well. So I found that some of the things that would help is just look at what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. If you're doing anything that's interesting, do a lit review, do some kind of search. If no one's written about it, write about it. Put the time into it. I also think find like your happy place to write. For me, it happens to be this office setting. I love it because I can have a monitor here and I have my laptop here, I have a great keyboard. I can sit here, drink my coffee, and just kind of get in the mood. It helps me, like I think for me personally, overcome writer's block. I cannot write at my office at school. I can not write off campus at my clinical site. I find there's too much bothersome stuff going on. So find some time to do it. So find some place. It's a coffee shop. It's a coffee shop. But I think finding what gets you in that zone would really, really help. It's going to take some trial and error though. Usually also I like music blasting or something like that I listen to that just helps me think through it. Um, and like taking breaks, walking away can often help. But sometimes when I'm just in that zone, I just go just write, and like take no break, because it feels so good, and you feel like you're just putting so much down. The other thing is there's some software out there that can help you. I subscribe to like some writing software that helps me out with my grammar and such. I found that has been immensely beneficial. There's things like that that you can use too, that if you need it. Um, some other thoughts I have is talk to other faculty, see if people want to write with you. The one thing is you probably want to avoid is just people like latching onto you to like do most of the work and such. I don't like it when that happens. Like I feel like there's been many writing projects where you put time into something or someone wants it to go in and it's like falls apart before it's even out of the gate. And that has happened a bunch too. So just those are like little things I think always to keep in mind. And the other one I would say is if it's really fresh and you're really scared, like just submitting things for like really like a journal and such, and you want to start like very basic, just maybe journaling can help. Just writing or writing things online, or going on to some of the pharmacy publications that are online or printed. Like if it's Pharmacy Today, drugstore news, things like that, just email them asking, hey, I work in this space or I do X, Y, Z. Would you be interested in if I wrote articles or even just blog posts and put them out there? Like you could just, if you want to just take a recent study that was published and just mesh it out, just summarize it and put it online. There you go. There's your opportunity to like start practicing. But I think it's doing things like that that really help you. And then the other thing is then you keep in mind who's your end readership, how do you structure it, what's your style and such. Those are things that can help build up. And that's what's even for me is I think it's helped. Like I can for me I can be like, okay, I'm writing a publication that I know is going for peer review. I'm writing an article that's going to be read by laymen. I'm going to write an article written by pharmacists. I'm going to write an article that's going to be read by patients. Like having those skills I think can immensely help you because you just change your writing mindset. But you've done this because you practiced and you've done it multiple times and you've gotten feedback. The other thing is also I think social media is a great way to engage. I think when you write something, I think you should spread what you've done. I think you should go online and say, "Hey, I've written this thing. This is what it is," and people will want to read it. But there's so many articles published every day, every week, every month. PubMed is backfilled on this stuff, and I think just hoping someone will stumble across your paper. Sometimes this is going to happen. I think sometimes you have to put it out there. Last advice I have, and this goes really hard for pharmacy, and there's this certain push to only publish, I think, in pharmacy journals. That happens a lot, like APHA, AJHP, the other like limited pharmacy academic journals, for instance, um, but things like that. So, you know, one thing that I take away from that, and this is my own personal thought this time, is if you publish in pharmacy journals, who's going to read it? It's mainly going to be other pharmacists. A lot of the pharmacy journals, I don't think even teamed up with large publishing houses, and it may not even be seen by people outside of pharmacy. There aren't members of those organizations. So you really start putting yourself in a space where you're not going to have a lot of readers outside of our own profession. I think that limits you. I think you should aim to publish in other journals, other medical journals, other things like that. I think that's a big benefit. So if you have stuff, I think you should be considering, hey, where can I publish this that's not pharmacy? And I'm not saying like you should completely avoid it, but the one thing is I think if you have a game plan in your head where you want to go, where you want to publish stuff and put things out, you should really keep that in mind. Because I think if you explicitly always target pharmacy journals, then your audience is always going to be pharmacists, and that's kind of where you're going to exist. It's hard to then break out of that niche. So try to work with others. If you just need to work with another physician to get into it, even like a more medical journal, then maybe that's what it takes. But something like that is always what I think has to kind of really go across. I think that's the reason why we see such a shortage of like PharmDs published in a lot of other journals is that we don't aim for those half the time. So that's one other piece of feedback I would say is aim beyond traditional pharmacy journals if you really want to start getting like a bigger name outside of your space. Or if you're interested in a space that's like maybe not traditional pharmacy. That's one thing I've struggled with is I love digital health. Um, I love pharmacy technology, but it's not informatics. So like half the time if I submit like some of my papers to like a pharmacy journal, I get hit by all these informatics people and it's a headache. versus if I submit to another some other journal, they're gonna like, oh, I understand this, and I get a different editorial. So for a reviewer, so it's those are things that have come up as well. In any event, so these are some of my thoughts just on terms of writing. If you want, leave a comment in terms of what you think has been helpful for you. These are just from my own personal experiences. I don't see a lot of articles or posts or just people talking about it. I think there should be more sharing about it, not just like us taking pictures of our writing spaces or just saying I'm writing now, but just like what goes even through our head or different strategies. I think there is a strategy to this stuff. It's just I think there needs to be more voices in terms of how do people publish or get things out and do that. I would love to hear from another person that could go and talk about how they form writing groups or like with other people to publish a lot. And because I've seen some certain names always pop up, but they're always with another person or another thing. And it's always struck me as it's almost like a alliance in terms of writers. Like how do you form those? How do you go about it? How, like what do you guys break apart? Those are things that I don't know, and I think would be very interesting to hear from others. Anyway, this is Timothy Young, the Digital Apothecary. Take care and have a good day.